Welcome to Trend Reddit, where I share interesting, useful, and inspiring content. Let's explore the world together through the videos I create. Don't forget to click the follow button so you don't miss anything new. Thank you for visiting and hope we have great experiences together. Evelyn Mitchell stood at the towering window of her luxurious office, gazing out at the city she had ruled for years. Her reflection in the glass looked composed, strong, a woman who had taken the reins of her late husband's empire and expanded it beyond what anyone thought possible. Yet, beneath that steely exterior was an unmistakable loneliness. The massive mansion she returned to each night, once filled with laughter and life, now echoed with silence, and her victories in the boardroom felt hollow without someone to share them with. Evelyn had built her reputation on precision, on control. But control, she had come to realize, was a double-edged sword. Her meticulous management of every aspect of the business left no room for the messiness of personal connections, the kind she had with her husband. And now, she was alone. Tom Bradley, on the other hand, had no such responsibilities weighing him down. As the janitor of Evelyn's vast corporate building, he was an invisible presence, going about his work with quiet efficiency. For years, he had cleaned the same floors, dusted the same desks, and emptied the same trash bins. Nobody paid much attention to him, and that was fine by Tom. He preferred to observe the world around him from a distance, unnoticed, undisturbed. But that was about to change. It was a rainy afternoon when Evelyn, deep in thought, made an unusual decision. After reviewing a set of documents that left her with an uneasy feeling, she called for Tom, the man who had silently worked in the shadows of her empire for so long. He entered her office, unsure why he had been summoned but respectful as always. "I need your help, Tom," she said, her voice calm but with an undercurrent of urgency. Tom blinked in surprise. "Me, ma'am? I'm just the janitor." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Exactly. And I believe you see things the rest of us don't. I need someone I can trust to accompany me to a meeting tomorrow. You don't need to know business, I just need your honesty." Tom stood there, speechless. Little did he know, his quiet life was about to take an unexpected turn. The next morning, Tom arrived at the office earlier than usual, still grappling with Evelyn's unusual request. He had spent the entire night tossing and turning, wondering why the CEO of one of the most powerful companies in the city would ask a janitor to join her in a high-stakes business meeting. He had no knowledge of corporate dealings, no expertise in financial matters. In fact, he'd never set foot in a meeting room except to clean it after everyone had left. Evelyn greeted him with a calm nod as he stepped into her office. "Thank you for agreeing to come, Tom. I know this is out of the ordinary." Tom cleared his throat nervously. "I don't understand, ma'am. I'm not sure how I can help you. I'm just, well, you know." Evelyn gave him a reassuring smile. "I don't expect you to know the details of the meeting, Tom. What I need is someone with clear, honest eyes, someone who isn't caught up in the games and strategies. I've trusted my instincts all these years, and they're telling me to bring you." Still puzzled but unwilling to disappoint her, Tom nodded. "If you think I can help, ma'am, I'll be there." Later that day, Tom found himself walking into a polished, intimidating conference room, with gleaming floors and a long mahogany table that could easily seat 20 people. Seated around it were some of the city's most influential business figures, including the notorious Carlisle Blackwood. He was Evelyn's longtime rival, known for his ruthless tactics in the corporate world. As Tom took his seat beside Evelyn, he felt out of place, his nerves jangling. The discussions that followed were laced with legal jargon and financial terms that went over his head. Carlisle, with his smooth, calculated words, tried to pressure Evelyn into signing an agreement, leaning into his charm while subtly twisting the conversation in his favor. Tom, unsure of what to make of the situation, felt like a fish out of water. However, he sensed something was wrong, even if he couldn't quite pinpoint it yet. And then, something caught his eye. If you find it interesting, please like it. If not, please comment number 1. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. Tom's discomfort grew as the meeting continued. He watched Carlisle Blackwood weave his way through the conversation with a practiced ease, using complicated business terms that Tom couldn't follow. But despite his lack of understanding, something about the entire setup felt wrong. The way Carlisle spoke, the subtle pressure he applied, and the smug looks exchanged with his assistant all triggered a sense of unease in Tom. As Tom sat there, struggling to figure out how he could possibly help, he noticed a slight movement on Carlisle's side of the table. Beneath the edge of Carlisle's leather briefcase, a document was partially concealed, almost as if it were hidden on purpose. Tom's eyes narrowed. Something about the positioning of the briefcase seemed deliberate, as if Carlisle didn't want anyone to see what was underneath. Tom leaned forward slightly, trying to get a better look at the document without drawing too much attention to himself. The title at the top of the page was partially visible, though he couldn't make out the whole thing. Still, the words Asset Transfer Agreement stood out like a glaring warning sign. His heart started to race. He didn't understand all the intricacies of the business world, but he knew enough to realize that this document wasn't supposed to be hidden. It felt sneaky, underhanded, and that realization made him even more uneasy. Was Carlisle trying to trick Evelyn into signing something she hadn't seen? Summoning his courage, Tom cleared his throat. "Excuse me, Mr. Blackwood," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "What's that document under your briefcase?" The room went dead silent. Everyone turned to look at Tom, surprised that the janitor had spoken up during such a serious meeting. Carlisle froze for a second, his smile faltering before he quickly recovered. "Oh, that? It's nothing important," he said, brushing it off with a casual wave of his hand. But Evelyn, now fully alert, wasn't going to let it slide. "I'd like to see it," she said firmly, her eyes narrowing as she extended her hand toward Carlisle. Reluctantly, Carlisle moved his briefcase aside and slid the document across the table. Evelyn skimmed through it quickly, her expression darkening with every line she read. Tom could see the realization dawn on her face as she pieced together what Carlisle had been trying to do. Evelyn's eyes blazed with fury as she finished reading the document. The room remained eerily silent, the tension palpable. Carlisle shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his confident facade cracking under the weight of Evelyn's gaze. "This is a blatant attempt to steal my company's assets," she said, her voice sharp and filled with authority. She slapped the document down on the table, the sound echoing through the room. "You thought I wouldn't notice? You thought you could trick me with legal jargon and manipulation?" Carlisle opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He had been caught, and everyone in the room knew it. His assistant, seated next to him, paled visibly, nervously fidgeting with a pen as the realization set in that their carefully laid plan had unraveled in front of their eyes. Evelyn stood up, her presence commanding the room as she pointed at Carlisle. "You tried to deceive me, to take advantage of a vulnerable situation, and you thought I wouldn't see through it. But thanks to Tom," she gestured toward the janitor, "your little scheme has been exposed." Tom, still sitting in his chair, felt the weight of the room's attention on him. He was no longer invisible. He had become a crucial part of Evelyn's victory, though he had never imagined such a role for himself. His observation, born of years of unnoticed work, had turned the tide of the meeting. Carlisle, desperate to salvage the situation, stammered, "This is a misunderstanding. That document wasn't meant to." "Don't even try to lie your way out of this," Evelyn cut him off, her voice colder than ice. "The document speaks for itself. You were trying to gain control of my company's most valuable assets without my consent. This is a direct betrayal." Carlisle's bravado had crumbled completely. He looked around the room, but no one came to his defense. His assistant avoided eye contact, clearly terrified of being implicated in the scandal. The executives at the table, previously silent, now exchanged uneasy glances, realizing the gravity of what had just occurred. Carlisle tried to regain his composure, but it was too late. His confident, smug demeanor had vanished, replaced by a look of desperation. "Evelyn, we can work something out. There's no need to escalate this further," he pleaded, his voice shaky and lacking its usual authority. Evelyn stared at him, unimpressed. "Work something out? You've already shown your true colors," Carlyle. I don't need to make any deals with someone who tried to deceive me. The other executives in the room remained quiet, clearly distancing themselves from Carlyle's failed scheme. They knew better than to get involved in the mess he had created. Carlyle, once a powerful figure in these circles, now seemed small and powerless. His assistant shifted nervously beside him, sensing the sinking ship they were both on. Evelyn turned to the other executives, her voice steady and authoritative. This meeting is over. Any further discussions will be conducted with legal counsel present. I will not tolerate any more underhanded attempts to undermine my company. The executives nodded in agreement, some mumbling their thanks as they gathered their things to leave the room. Carlyle remained seated, frozen, unsure of what to do next. His assistant quietly packed up their documents, avoiding any eye contact as they prepared to exit. Before leaving, Evelyn looked over at Tom, her expression softening for the first time since the meeting began. "Tom," she said, "I owe you a great deal of thanks. Your honesty and keen observation saved me from a terrible mistake." Tom, still processing everything that had just unfolded, managed a humble nod. "I just did what seemed right, ma'am," he said quietly, not fully grasping the magnitude of what he had uncovered. Evelyn smiled, a genuine smile that held both gratitude and admiration. "You did more than that. You saw what no one else did, and you weren't afraid to speak up." As Carlyle and his assistant hurriedly left the room, defeated, Evelyn turned back to Tom. "I think we have much more to discuss, Tom," she said, her tone filled with a sense of newfound respect. As the room cleared and the weight of the moment settled, Tom still couldn't quite believe what had just happened. He had spent years being invisible, a background figure in the lives of powerful executives. But today, he had been the one to change the course of events in a room filled with some of the city's most influential people. It felt surreal. Evelyn, now calm after the confrontation, walked over to Tom, her expression softer and more approachable. "You've been here for years, Tom," she said, her voice carrying a tone of appreciation. "And today, you proved something that I think I've always known but never fully acknowledged. There's more to people than their titles, more to you than being a janitor." Tom shifted awkwardly, unsure how to respond to such praise. "I was just doing what I thought was right, ma'am," he said modestly. Evelyn smiled, a warm and genuine smile that made Tom feel at ease. "You did much more than that. You saw what no one else did, and you spoke up when others might have stayed quiet. That's something I value deeply." There was a pause, a moment of quiet understanding between them, as Evelyn took a deep breath and then continued. "My husband, before he passed, always spoke highly of you. He respected you for your dedication and your honesty, and now I understand why. I should have taken the time to know you better." Tom was taken aback by this revelation. He had never known that the late Mr. Mitchell had even noticed him, let alone respected him. It was a lot to take in. "I want you to be part of this company in a real, meaningful way," Evelyn said, her tone firm but kind. "You've shown today that you have a perspective that's valuable, and I could use someone like you on my team." Tom blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "On your team?" he repeated, disbelief coloring his voice. "Yes," Evelyn confirmed. "Not as a janitor, but as someone I can trust, someone who can see things others might miss. What do you think?" For the first time in his life, Tom felt a deep sense of pride and belonging. He nodded slowly, realizing that this was more than just a job offer, it was a new beginning. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.